The North Carolina Supreme Court has ruled that homeowners associations cannot stop homeowners from installing solar. California has instituted new rules that will make it easier for utility scale systems to connect to the grid, and electric capacity prices for utilities have fallen dramatically in the last offer. I'm Jay Warmke with Blue Rock Station, and this is the news for solar for the week of June 27th. Now, as I mentioned, the North Carolina Supreme Court has, in a landmark ruling, overturned a lower court ruling stating that homeowners associations cannot prohibit their members from installing solar on their homes. Now, they can put in place reasonable restrictions on the use of solar within those homeowners' jurisdictions, but the court has ruled that prohibiting solar is not considered reasonable. Also, forcing homeowners to place solar panels in places where they cannot function, such as the north side of a roof, is also not considered reasonable. There are currently about 26 states and the District of Columbia that have laws in place that prohibit homeowners associations from stopping their members from installing solar. Soulshare has tested a new product in Orlando, Florida at a 296-unit apartment complex called Canopy Villa Apartments. And this is a completely behind-the-meter system that allows the apartment complex to install a large solar array and then allocate production and the feedback to the grid, or the net metering, to all of the individual meters at the site. So rather than, has in the past been required, that the utility get involved and take the power that's being generated and allocate it to individual customers, this system lies between the inverter producing the power and each individual meter, and effectively allocates not only the power consumption, but any of the excess power that's net metered back to the utility through the individual meters, so that the utility doesn't have to be involved at all. Now, there are 21.9 million apartments in the US, and this is thought to be a market where a product such as this will have a great impact on the adoption of solar within apartment buildings. California has instituted new interconnection rules that are designed to allow more and more utility scale projects to fast track, or basically to avoid lengthy review processes when they go to interconnect to the grid. Now, in the past, what they've done is they've said, okay, if a system exceeds the 15% of peak load threshold, or basically if it's large enough that it will meet or exceed 15% of what that segment of the grid that they're connecting to might handle during peak load, then it must go through a lengthy review process. This has been thought to be a relatively arbitrary measurement and has slowed down or put projects into that lengthy review that might otherwise not need to be. So the new law is saying that if the project does not exceed 90% of the existing available capacity of that section of the grid, then it can go through the fast track process. This has become a concern because, for example, the NREL, the National Renewable Energy Labs, did a study in 2015, found that the average time for an interconnection process to take place was about 62 days. Now, recently, Lawrence Berkeley National Labs just conducted a survey to find out how long it takes for utility scale projects to get approval to connect to the grid, which is now 3.7 years. So clearly there is a backlog for this process of approval. The capacity market has seen dramatic falls in the cost of electricity. Now, what the capacity market is it's a marketplace where the utilities go in and 3 years in advance, they purchase electricity from all of the various generators. They basically get the capacity that they anticipate they will need. And the prices at the last round fell to 10-year record lows. For PJM, that's the area that services the Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey region all the way over to Chicago. The prices have fallen 32%, down to 31.13 per megawatt. And that's the equivalent of 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And there is a lot of new supply, apparently, primarily driven by renewable energy. And there's no increase in demand, so prices are falling. And we'll wait to see if these lower prices to the utilities translate into lower prices to consumers. I wouldn't hold my breath. West Virginia is proposing to ban 6 large financial institutions from participating in state contracts because of what they had perceived as a bias against fossil fuel companies. Now, these companies have urged net zero lending practices to their subsidiaries. The firms that are being targeted by the state of West Virginia are BlackRock, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and U.S. Bank. Now, the West Virginia State Treasurer has given these companies 30 days to prove that they do not have a discrimination policy against fossil fuel companies. And that's the news from Solar for this week. We'll see you next week.